Okay. Good morning, world. How are we today? Yes. So, look, this morning I just wanted to make it'll probably be a short video. Because I'm listening to the news and I'm hearing, news pieces about, all the stuff that Trump has said, in relation to wiping out a whole civilization and, flattening a whole country and, raining down hell on Iran and all these sort of threats, all of this sort of language being used, and I just thought, that's one aspect of what's happening in the world, right? And I don't want to take away for a second, the hardship and trauma being caused to so many people right now. And, just like what happened with the original negotiations that were supposed to be taking place between Iran and the US, attacks, killings continue to happen as they are now, and I mean, even like with Lebanon, I don't understand why so many innocent people are being killed, all in the apparent name of, being claimed to be because, they're trying to kill Hezbollah, a group that they claim is like a terrorist organization, militant group. Now, I haven't looked, to be honest, I haven't really seriously looked into Hezbollah. But in my opinion, in my humble, ignorant opinion, not knowing too much about them, have they not just like defended Lebanon and Iran from murderers? Is that not what they've been doing? Because it kind of seems a little bit like vigilante maybe, or a little like, I don't know, they're looking out for their own people from the big bad West, America, and from, the kingpin of the Middle East, Israel, bullying and murdering their people. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I haven't heard of any examples provided to suggest why Hezbollah is such a apparent terrible group. I don't know. I'll have to look into it, but I haven't heard anything in all the news that I've listened to. Anyway, so my point is that, you've got all this stuff going on with the stuff that Trump is saying, the stuff that Benjamin is saying, and their threats and their continued actions of murder. And then you've got, the global financial, fallout of what's all happened. and, you know, obviously like a fuel crisis situation, even though, you know, I know that like Australia only released like, I think it was like 5% of our reserves into our like national community to like assist with the situation of like panic buying and stuff. I don't know what they're holding on to the other 95% of their fuel for. I mean, if it was such a you know, crisis of a situation as it is, you know, because we can see for ourselves that petrol stations have been running out of petrol because of panic buying, whatever. Doesn't matter what the reason is. You know, why isn't the government releasing more of what they have in their reserves for us? Why are they making it so that people can't get to work or can't get their kids to school, or you know, that farmers can't get produce from A to B? You know, I mean, it's like they're trying to secure more fuel from other countries, like, you know, Albanese, our Prime Minister, going and having a meeting over in Singapore to strengthen our relationship with them, because we get so much fuel from Singapore. You know, but it's like, it's also kind of like, I mean, I've never heard about our relationship with Singapore before now. Literally, never. And, you know, yeah. Anyway, so you've got our government going, and, you know, the focus is on our government trying to make sure that our fuel is secured by strengthening the relationship between Australia and Singapore. You know, like, that's supposed to stop Australians from panicking about the situation with fuel. That's supposed to fix what? Immediately? Nothing. You know, but there's such a big focal spotlight put on it. And, you know, I don't know, I feel like there's been some lies told. And perhaps they thought that it was necessary to lie to Australians about how much reserves of fuel we had, or where we get a majority of our fuel from, and how many shipments we've actually had coming in the last month or two, because I don't understand why the government at a time like this wouldn't be releasing more from its reserves to alleviate such a huge problem, you know. And anyway, so you've got all that going on, right? So you've got Trump and Benjamin and all their threats, you know, the language that they're using, and their continued murderous behaviour. You've got the financial, you know, problems, you know, crisis, and the fuel crisis happening as well globally. So you've got all that going on. Then you've got already, you know, in Australia it's a big thing, and I'm assuming that it is a big thing in many other places, that, you know, cost of living has just been on the increase, really for quite some time, but all of this to do with the war and with fuel and things has made things go up again. And I remember during COVID and stuff when they said that there was some sort of issue. I can't remember if it was to do with fuel as well that they said. And that's why things went up in price at the supermarket. But then all other sort of stuff also increased in price. Like when we tried to get mechanical work done on a previous vehicle that we had there, that was way more expensive, and we also had to wait a few weeks before even like a particular part would arrive from somewhere, not outside of Victoria, not outside of Australia, just, apparently there was like a logistical transporting issue at the time, and that was their reason, that was their excuse for prices of things going up. And building supplies even and all that sort of stuff went up at that time too during COVID. And it's like that never went back down, it never went back to normal, and it's funny as well because all during COVID the slogan that was being thrown around everywhere was, the new normal. And that's just like what David Icke was saying about the reason for wars, and that wars are planned. It's to bring in a new normal. It's to change the status quo to a new status quo, and that the leaders of the countries involved have agreed to bring in particular change, and that it's choreographed, and they're aware that innocent people will die. They're aware that there will be soldiers lost. There's a agreement allegedly between these nations in all the wars, and the people and the soldiers are just pawns in a game. Their lives are worth nothing to them, like to the leaders. And I've heard other people say similar things about things not adding up, and things being a bit sus, and it's kind of like the world population is complicit and compliant and consenting, because you're not doing anything about it. We are not jumping up and down and saying, no, stop. So if you don't have sort of like a big enough problem with what they're doing, if you don't like kind of take a stand, like put your foot down about it, and enough people doing it, then it's like you consent to their little monopoly game. You consent to their murders. You consent to the changes that they're wanting to bring in. The new status quo that they're wanting to bring in. You're consenting to it because you didn't do anything to stop it. You didn't protest it at all or enough. And I think that's it's the whole point of why they keep us so distracted with emotion and distracted with technology like social media and things like that, and devices and all that, it's because, you know, if you're a distracted person, and you're an emotionally unstable person, you know, then, you know, who's going to listen to you? You're not going to affect any change. You can't do anything against what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, I literally have even thought in the past several years, while there's been this big push for, you know, basically like pushing mental health issues out there, and so many symptoms that could just be, you know, what's the word? Like symptoms of, you know, going through a tough time in your life, you know, for so many different reasons. Oh no, you've got depression. Oh, you've got social anxiety. Oh, you've got this neurological fucking thing. Oh, you've got you've got this, you've got that. Oh, we've got to put you on medication. We've got to get you on a treatment plan. We've got to, you know, hook you up with a psychologist for ongoing therapy. You know, that's gonna, you're not getting out of that therapy for 5 years, you know. And I'm not saying that some people don't have actual clinical things wrong with them that require therapy and possibly medication, but I'm just saying that in the last several years I feel like there's been a huge push to get people diagnosed with things and medicated for things that possibly they didn't need, or don't have even, and I feel like it's on purpose, to what's the word, you know, like where you sort of destroy someone's integrity, like you kind of make it so they're not like a reliable person to like listen to, you know, and things like that, because oh, they've got a mental health issue, or they've got depression, or they've got this neurological thing. You know, you take away their integrity so that no one will listen to them, and maybe even in a court, you know, their word and whatnot their character is like holds less weight legally. I don't know if that's a thing, but I've been suspicious of that in the last several years, and you know, perhaps there is some sort of legal relevance to it. You know, maybe a person that has been diagnosed with this, that, or the other can't legally do this or say this, or, you know, just have it's kind of like character assassination. Do you know what I mean? You take away the integrity of that person, and less people will believe them, and perhaps they have less believability. You know, I'm failing to think of the correct word here. Yeah, less weight of being believed in possible, you know, criminal things, or just court. And anyway, so you've got yeah, all these different aspects of things going on, and then you've got you know, and distraction and all that, so that you know, basically you're too busy, or you're too emotional, or you're too distressed, or you're too distracted to do anything about anything. And you know, we've heard plenty of things as well with YouTube, you know, that YouTubers, you know, their channels, like the algorithms get fixed because, and when I say fixed, I mean like, you know, modified in such a way that less people see your videos because you're talking about subject matter that, the leaders of the world don't want you talking about. You can't, you can essentially get like blocked on YouTube so that no one sees your stuff. And then there's like a whole thing within YouTube and beyond, as well, of like, the cool club, and the if and the infiltrators and the people that are basically put there to derail conspiracy theories, and people who are put there to tell a bit of truth and then a lot of lies, um, you know, so that everything is kind of skewed. Yeah, so you've just got all of this going on, right? But then you've still got your actual life, you've still, and this is going to sound perhaps like heartless or ignorant or insensitive, and I don't mean it to. I'm very aware that in other parts of the world, people have it, so much tougher than someone in my shoes, somebody in a, Western country, someone who, is classified as privileged in so many ways. And it doesn't matter that I've got, car problems or money problems or, whatever problems in my life. I'm still classified as, a lot more privileged of a person than so many other people. And I understand that. But you still do find yourself, you do still find yourself, you know, um, in your own life having your own problems, don't you? Like today, I have my neighbour's funeral, and there's things that go on in your life, isn't there, that causes you upset or stress or problems and things like that. And so, in what very little time you've got to worry about anything or do anything about anything, you have to worry about and do something about your own personal life, don't you? Like, it does seem like it's too hard and too big of a problem to change the world, to do something, on a much bigger scale, of bettering things in the world and affecting change, and that's why, a lot of people are living with a sense of like disheartenment about, the world that we live in and the way it's going, and, the balance of good and bad, and even with protesting, how many times have we seen in the last several years, something that used to be classified as like, just like a human right, basically, like that people should be able to take to the streets and protest, even take to like government buildings. That I thought that was like a thing that you could go up to a certain point legally, and protest out the front, to your government leaders. And now, COVID was the first time that I saw people get shot at. People get their head rammed into the ground by police. Women shoved up against, brick walls and arrested, and, the amount of injuries that was caused by arrests, and then I don't know if they're implants or if they just happen to talk about or show like a few bad eggs, but then all of a sudden they justify their violence towards citizens by saying that, oh, the protesters were violent and they were doing this and they were doing that. And it's like, the YouTubers as well that went to these rallies or protests or whatever you want to call them, they also showed their own video footage. And everything looked very peaceful there, and they were, trying to crowd control and look out for safety of everyone, and making sure that no damage was done anywhere. I mean, it seems a bit suspicious that you have so much footage from people who were actually there posted to YouTube, and then you've got, the news, and you've got authorities, trying to paint a very, very different picture. And anyway, so since then, it's like even protesting has been, deterred, like really deterred. People are scared to protest now, I think. And, even just the presence of thousands of police and things like that is a very intimidating action. And, they try to justify things however they do. But look, at the end of the day, I'm just saying that, with everything that's going on in the world, and you might be wanting to stamp your feet on the ground, and you might want to throw your fist up in the air, and you might want to shout on the steps out the front of your government buildings, and demand that your government stop its actions or its support of another nation's murderous actions and things like that. But you've got that risk that's been instilled in you, that fear instilled in you in the past several years, that, hey, you might be killed or severely injured by going and standing up for people's human rights around the world, let alone your own, in your own country. Yeah, you might be killed or severely injured, or locked in jail, or huge fines or whatever, for protesting anymore. So, people are very deterred to do that as well. So it's like, it's like you're kind of forced to consent to the actions of your government and the governments around the world, because what you're supposed to do, the protesting, you've had too much fear put in you to go and do that anymore. And I think that that's all been a planned thing, a psychological thing they've done on purpose to people. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure as well that if you speak out against your government, against your country, you can be like put on lists and stuff, and you're basically treated as a domestic terrorist, and you've got the fear of the government coming after you or authorities coming after you. But it's like, oh, okay, so as a citizen of a country, are you supposed to just agree with everything that your government does, and what they be involved with other countries? Like, why is it not okay for you to speak out against your government, but it's okay for, like, in your country you have different parties, different political parties, and what are they all doing all the time? They are all fighting each other, and saying, bad things about each other, and pointing out, oh, you did this, oh, you did that, oh, you did this. Why is it okay for them to do that, but it's not okay for you to do that? You should be allowed to have an opinion on what your government does or is involved with. And we should be allowed to protest, and we should, it's just like back in the 70s or whatever, when the hippies were protesting against war and all that sort of stuff, and saying, like, peace not war. I mean, I feel like they kind of put like a label of like the hippies as like to take away sort of like character assassination too, because people sort of immediately associate hippiness with like, oh, you take drugs. So, you know, your character can't be trusted, your word can't be trusted, your opinion can't be trusted, so you've got less weight, you know? But really, it's like, you know, kind of a rational thinking person can come to the realization or the understanding, you know, based on. It's okay. It's okay, Bobby. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to sign off there and take her in. I will see you all in another video. Food for thought.